Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secret to Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Jack.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lams. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Today we are discussing the 13th episode of Season 9 of Stargate SG-1, Ripple Effect. When multiple SG-1 teams from alternate realities begin arriving on Earth through an unstable Stargate connection, likely caused by the residual effects of a black hole, the original SG-1 and General Landry must unravel the mystery and find a way to send them all back. As they interview the different teams, they discover varying timelines and dire situations, including one where Dr. Fraser is alive, but the Earth is ravaged by the Ori plague for which they have no cure. A plan to use the Prometheus to close the breach risks stranding everyone, leading one of the alternate SG-1 teams to hijack the ship with the intent of stealing a ZPM from Atlantis, and it is revealed that this has been their plan all along, and they do in fact have a way back. The original SG-1 anticipates their moves, sets a trap, and ultimately ends up outwitting themselves in various clever ways. And they use an Asgard device, which is only on loan. He definitely makes sure that they know that. To send all the teams back to their alternate realities, but not before alternate
Mitchell
Mitchell gives a cryptic warning to Prime Mitchell. What are your thoughts on this episode, Jeff?
Yeah, I really like this one. I mentioned it in our 200th episode that it was one of my honorable mentions because it was kind of a island among the season 9, season 10 episodes. Even though I like season 9 and 10, this one I think is definitely one of the better ones, especially at least in season 9. It was great seeing Dr. Fraser back. I thought, from what I remembered, I thought she was in it more, but she's really only in it for 2 scenes. And thinking about it, I wish they would have done more with her and had, maybe focused on her more, being more involved and less on the, evil SG-1, even though they weren't really that evil. That would have been just cool to see her more. And I liked seeing the SG-1 being rogue, because we really haven't seen SG-1 being villainous in any way intentionally. We've seen some, people impersonating SG-1, but I don't think we've ever seen SG-1 actually be the villains or do the bad thing. But they were trying to do that here, and even though it was kind of for an altruistic reason to try to get the ZPM to save their home, their Earth, it still was interesting to have that a little bit of a twist on there. And yeah, this one was fun. I liked it.
What about you, Lisa?
I'm with Jeff. I thought it was a really fun episode. I will admit I'd completely forgotten that this existed. So I felt like I was watching it for the first time. And my husband was next to me and he kept going, yeah, I remember. No. I'm like, no, I don't remember. I told you I've just blanked all of 9 and 10. It was fun. There was a lot of talking and a lot of techno babble and this and that. And I actually watched it a second time just to try to get a handle on what was going on and all of that. And then I realized I don't really care. So the point was that the evil SG-1 did it on purpose and they got everyone home. So that was all that really mattered. But I like that they brought in the Asgard, they had Janet. I could have done without Martouf, but they mentioned Selmac and Jacob are still alive. And I don't know. To me, it was almost like a nod to fans, that we're just going to have some fun. Or it was one of those ideas that was sitting around for years, like, wouldn't it be fun if, and then now they're like, meh, why don't we do that now?
Yeah.
So they had a lot of fun with it. You could tell all the different SG teams. You had like Teal'c with a do-rag and it was hysterical. So I liked it.
What about you, Victor?
Yeah, Lisa, you're exactly right. It was an idea that Brad Wright had a few years ago, which was basically, what if there were many SG-1 teams coming through the gate? And because they were doing so many other big episodes, they needed to do an episode that just used existing sets in pretty much the existing cast. And so Joseph Malazzi wrote this from Brad Wright's kind of, idea or germ of an idea there. And it is really fun. I didn't remember this one either, but we get some pretty impressive visual effects with the the same cast members in the same frame and walking in and out of frame and stuff. And it's really impressive. We get some really good humor in this and many more jokes and ad libs that were actually cut out of the episode as well. So unfortunately, I don't know if Joseph Malazzi, he sometimes releases bloopers and other cut footage, to his X account and other places. I don't know if I didn't do a search to see if he's released anything from here, but if there is that footage, it would definitely be fun to look up.
I did look on YouTube and I couldn't find it. So I didn't look on X though.
Nice. Yeah. I really enjoyed this one, and it's nice. Like, I feel like there's been a big turn in the quality of season 9 over the past 2 episodes, because I really liked the previous one and I really like this one. And they're both kind of story of the week episodes that have nothing to do with the Ori, and that makes them much more interesting. Like, it almost feels like it has that people always talk about the X-Files, how there's the Mythos episodes and then there's the Monster of the Week episodes, and it seems like the consensus is that the Monster of the Week episodes are the better ones, and I kind of feel like that's how season 9 has been. Like, I don't really care about the Ori or what's going on with them. They just seem like less interesting Gould. So it's nice to get this where it's more character focused and the characters dealing with these weird situations that they come up with. So I'm very happy for the change over the past 2 episodes.
I just couldn't get out of my head when the first SG-1 comes through and then they get the second SG-1 dials in and they get the IDC and they're like, oh, let's just let him through the gate without even questioning anything. And I know it's a conceit of the show that you just have to let those things happen, but I'm like, have an Alpha site or have some kind of off-Earth security place to do these kind of, handle these kind of situations. But I just had that thought of like, we're just going to keep letting them in. And I mean, it's good that they do, but yeah, it should have been suspicious that when the second team comes through, when they're already there, like, maybe we shouldn't, we should say, dial the Alpha site or dial the Beta site or something. But yeah, then like I keep saying, then you wouldn't have a show. So if you had to try to be practical about it.
Yeah, and security is pretty lax at the SGC too. They're letting all these different teams running around without really knowing what their motives are, even after they've told them, well, we're not going to send you back to save your realities. You'll have to stay here. At which point you just assume all the other teams would just revolt, right? And one of them, the original one who is playing this out, does. But yeah, apart from that, we do get to see some other fun versions of the SG teams, one with Mitchell and then 3 Jaffa wearing the upgrades wristbands. Was a nice touch. And there's lots of little Easter eggs and stuff like that in there too.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's cool.
I was really hoping that we get to see a team that still had Jack on it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. No, they all had Mitchell.
Even if you got to see just like the back of his head and it was his body double or something, right? That would have been pretty cool. But
yeah, I think they only said one team was different, right? And that was the one with Janet and Martouf.
Yeah, and Joseph Malazzi was teasing that on the forums at the time and says, we have an episode coming up where we're bringing back, some beloved Stargate characters, and everybody guessed right away, oh, is it Janet? Is it Janet? Is it Janet? And he was, I think, expecting more people to guess, like, oh, is it Martouf? And I don't know that anyone did.
No one missed Martouf. I'm just going to say.
The issue was he used the word beloved.
Right.
Yeah, or I don't know if he did, but yeah, I don't know that Martouf. I don't know. Yeah, he's pretty good in this episode. He and Sam apparently in his reality dated for a while, and then she left him for someone else, and they almost have a moment until Vasir, one of my new favorite Asgard, kind of interrupts.
I love that.
Yeah, third wheel Vasir.
As the parent of small children, I feel like that happens quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standing there asking for something.
Yep.
Yeah. Sam wasn't that interested in Martouf when he was around. And then now that it's been, 6 years? Now all of a sudden, while she told Beckett she was with somebody else. And anyway, I'm just saying, it was not appreciated.
I was going to say, they never say, because in the one reality, it's revealed that the alternate Sam is on maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
And they never say who she got married to, but I guess the implication is it supposed to be Jack O'Neill?
That's kind of what I took, that it was,
Or
they
is
were
it
just
Pete?
letting that in there for the fans, that it was going to, that it was Jack.
Yeah.
Well, the black BDU one, the first one they came through, and they said she had just gotten back from her honeymoon, remember? And with that one, Selmac and Jacob are still alive. So there were fans theorizing online that she did marry Pete in that one.
Oh, okay.
I don't, because remember, she only broke up with him after Jacob dying, was like, don't do it. But I don't buy into that.
Yeah, the funny thing about that too is that Joseph Malazzi wrote it, and he had, in mind that I think it was her and Jack or Mitchell, or no, it was Mitchell had a special someone, and in his mind it was Dr. Lamb, that they were together in the Black BDU universe. But Peter DeLuise like misinterpreted the script and kept writing moments where Mitchell and Sam were like holding hands as they got into the elevator and stuff. And then, they would show the dailies to Joseph Malazzi. He's like, what are you doing? That's not what I meant at all. They're not together.
See, I didn't even know that part, but there are times with the Black BDU SG1 that I'm watching Sam and Cameron Mitchell, and I'm like, I don't remember that being a thing. Like, you can see that they're trying to make them have chemistry. And for a moment, I'd forgotten this episode, and I forgot that they were going to be like the evil SG1, and then they go off to bed together, and I'm like, where are y'all going? What's going on? This is not
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, and that was the scene that Peter DeLuise had them walk into the turbo lift or whatever, holding hands, and Joseph Malazzi kind of said, no. That's not where the script was going at all.
Joseph Malazzi is a Sam Jack shipper, and he has said many times that in his headcanon, they are together. So I'm going to stick with that.
Well, I feel like Joseph Malazzi's headcanon counts as official canon since he wrote a lot of the show.
Yes.
So that's official.
Produced it for several years. Yeah.
We trusted him. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should have had a team where Pete was on the team.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that would have been
hilarious.
It's just all of Sam's boyfriends show up on different teams.
Well, we had Orlin last week, and then
a team with Orlin, a team with Pete, a team with boring Tolan guy.
Or they're all on the same SG team together. SG1 is just the Carter boyfriend.
The ambassador. Yeah.
Yeah.
SGXs.
Yeah.
That actually might have been fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why they didn't do a whole lot of extra, like get more than Frasier and Martouf back, but it because it was a money saving episode. But that could have been a fun idea if they had like really had a bigger budget to really play with that more, or even expand it into like a 2-parter or something. Just as like, it's just kind of would have been a fun thing to do. But I really did remember Frasier being in it more, but she's really only in it for the scene where they talk to her. I think the scene where she's like, General, no, you can't. We're dealing with the Ori plague, and then the scene at the very end. So I think it would have been more fun if they had her kind of more involved in the episode. Like maybe she was with the evil SG team, but didn't know the plot or something. Like they sent her in to like help convince everyone that they were good or whatever. But maybe that would have changed her status on in the cast list and cost more money. I don't know.
I like that they gave her that scene with General Landry. I thought that was nice, because you needed to have someone say, why is your reality more important than our reality? Remember, that was, we had that conversation with Teal'c many, many years ago when they had the Out of Mind. Was it Out of Mind? No, I can't remember what episode. And so it was kind of nice because Landry's like, no, mine matters. Like yours, just kind of irrelevant at the moment, and mine's the reality that matters. And so I like that. I like that they gave it to her to give her something to do rather than just, hey, you're dead. Haven't seen you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we do get that scene with Teal'c and Daniel where they see her and say, "Oh wow, like our version of you is dead," and that actually caused some discussion. That scene was a little bit longer, and Teal'c actually got very emotional seeing Dr. Frasier. And I think it was Robert C. Cooper who said, like, that's not his Janet Frasier. Why is he getting so emotional? And Joseph Malazzi made the point. It's like, well, I mean, if you had lost someone and then saw, basically their doppelganger or someone who was, so alike, you would probably get a little emotional too, irrespective of whether or not they're your reality version of that person. So I can see it both ways.
You could go back to Cold Lazarus with Jack O'Neill. Yeah. Where what was it called? The crystal became his son.
Entity.
Remember?
Yeah. You could go back to the episode, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, and I like that they had, so you have the evil SG team, and they're the kind of the catalyst for this entire situation. But I like that we also had the team with Janet, where they had a problem going on and they needed it to be solved, but they weren't going to do anything untoward with it. But it worked with the way the characters are, because if they were in that kind of situation, even the Prime team, they would be looking for ways to solve their problem.
Right.
And that they actually end up helping them at the end.
Yeah, because that was my thought while I'm watching. I'm like, why don't you just give them the vaccine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not clear if they need the actual prior's DNA, but hopefully it was the same prior who, infected them or something. Or maybe they've worked on it. Yeah, there were instructions on their little NVIDIA N-Gage or Nokia N-Gage.
That's
Garrick was able to.
Yeah,
Garrick was able to fix it was another prior that infected the people, and Garrick was able to fix it. So I guess it's just close enough is all you need.
It's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. When they opened up the yellow suitcase at the end, I was just thinking, oh, those must be all the those retro handhelds that you can't get anymore from China because of the tariffs. That's where they're all going.
Yeah, I got mine before the tariffs kicked in, so I can cure any plague here.
And I like that we get that first scene after the Black BDU SG-1 team comes in, where they're all interrogating the different members. And when alternate Jackson is talking to Mitchell, and he's like, either you are who you say you are or you're not. And then Daniel turns it around and is like, well, maybe you're not who you say we are, because they have gone through that situation before where they've come back to the SGC. So I like that they threw that in there, and it shows that they did a really good job not having the alternate team, even though they're the antagonists of the episode. They weren't, we keep calling them evil SG-1, even though they're not really evil.
And they didn't have beards.
Yeah. So that they're not,
he pointed that out.
Not mirror universe. But I like that they were going through that same thought process, and they didn't make their characters completely different. Like, they're the same, mostly the same people.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I thought it was interesting with all of the others, and I know you can't have all of the other versions of them speak. I think the only ones you really saw were Sam, right? When you had a bunch of them in a room and interacting. And I did find it interesting that they all were just happy to be standing around, which is not strike me as Sam Carter. They all would have been busy solving the problem, and most of them were just standing around chatting or drinking coffee or whatever. So, but I know that's for how they had to film it. But
yeah, and that is such a great scene, because there's I don't know, upwards of a dozen Samantha Carters in there, and they almost cut that scene because they were, it was late in the day or late in the week or something, and Peter DeLuise went to Joseph Malazzi and said, we could just cut this scene. We have enough in this episode already. And Joseph Malazzi said, no, this is this is the key scene that people are going to really enjoy. And I did really enjoy it, just seeing all the, you got nerdy Sam, you have, more Butch Sams and stuff there. And so it was really a really fun scene, seeing them all on the screen at the same time.
And I read a little bit about how they did it. And what I didn't know is if that was kind of cutting edge at the time, or was that normal was this 2006? Is that where we are now?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know they did it really seamlessly, because we've had episodes before where we've had more than one character on screen. And I feel like Stargate's always been really good at doing that because there's lots of shows where when they do that, it'll be like the one character's on one side of the screen and the other character's on the other side of the screen, and they can never like get close to each other. But Stargate, because they did one, I think, was it an alternate?
We had the balls, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
there
did
was one
mention
with
that
Jack O'Neill.
Yeah. They did mention that when they'd done it in the past, it was really hard to get the eye lines right. Like, and you see a little bit of this. They even called it out in the commentary where Sam's kind of like looking over the head of the other Sam instead of directly into her eyes. And so they adjusted, the frame on one of them. But it's not, I mean, there wasn't a lot of acting in front of green screens and compositing. It was more, doing, 2 passes on with the camera there, and in some cases the camera is moving too. And when we see our SG-1 come through the gate, and the the Black BDU SG-1 team is looking at them through the window of the control room, now you just digitally composite it, right? You would just move the face boop onto the actor. But what they actually did is they filmed that twice, once with the cast up in the briefing room, did the camera motion, but had it programmed. And so then when they had the same SG-1 team go through, did the pan around, did a rack focus. And so you have both teams on the screen at the same time. And it's just because they did 2 exact passes with the cast in different clothes and different places and stuff. And so that's
cool.
It's pretty cool. That's how they did a lot of it too. The most difficult scenes were they're in the brig on the Prometheus, because you have people actually walking into the room, and so it's hard, that you have to figure out where you're going to have the green screen and have the other, the same cast members composite them in afterwards and stuff. So it was pretty complicated. It's telling that on the commentary with Joseph Malazzi, it was the VFX supervisor for the episode was actually the guest on it. So we got some cool insight into how they did everything.
It is cool because this is one of those times where rarely for a science fiction show, the visual effects work best when you don't notice them at all.
Yeah.
But they did a really good job having like the lighting be the same, and just everything seemed pretty seamless. Like, and it never once stuck out to me as, that's, cut out.
Yeah. Some of the things that were cut, there was a scene where the 2 Teal'cs didn't really like being around each other, which we've seen when in the past when there have, been 2 Teal'cs, they don't usually trust each other very much. And there was a scene where alternate, Black BDU Teal'c was really uncomfortable on the Prometheus. And he says, well, just last week, our Prometheus was destroyed, which was, Joseph Malazzi intended that as some foreshadowing and stuff, but they cut that part out.
So what I hear you say is Christopher Judge had a lot of lines cut.
I don't know if it was cut or reactions, but his reactions in this are really good. Like when Prime SG-1 gets the drop on alternate reality SG-1, and they're explaining it, and alternate reality Mitchell's trying to follow along and trying to explain it back to them what just happened. Christopher Judge gets this really amazing Indeed take where he considers it for a moment and then says Indeed, and it's just one of the highlights of the episode.
I still like when he catches, I can't remember, is it Black BDU? Teal catches regular Cameron Mitchell after.
Clotheslines him.
Yeah.
Running down the hall.
One thing to keep running count of is the number of times Teal'c punches or knocks Cameron Mitchell down, because I think we start to see more of that. They mentioned that on the commentary too. So through season 10. Yeah. So it's through season 10. I think it happens 4 or 5 times.
So instead of counting how many times Daniel dies.
Yeah. I like that Mitchell tried to fight Teal'c, and he's like, I've got these Sodan moves, and he was already kind of loopy from being knocked down.
Zatted, yeah. Ben Browder had a lot of ad libs in this when they're in the briefing room, and Landry asks a question, and Mitchell interrupts him and says, another stupid question, and then he says, not that your question was stupid, that was a Ben Browder ad lib or improvisation there. And then when one of the other teams come through, the Ultra Commando Tiger Stripe camo SG-1 comes through, with their sunglasses, and they all take up their defensive positions as they come through. They had various scenes where Mitchell takes off his glasses and goes Frel, as a
Oh,
callback
that would've
to yeah.
They should have kept that in.
Yeah, but they decided that it was too soon for that. Or Frack from Battlestar Galactica was another take that they did. So
Nice.
Well, they saved that for later. So
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that in next season. So
Mm-hmm.
And I like in that briefing scene where Sam is trying to explain everything to them, and they call out that she keeps saying "we," and she's like, "Well, yeah, me and myself," referring to the alternate Sam, and I think Mitchell says something like, "You finally have found someone who can keep up with you," and then she pauses for a second, and then just goes, "Yep."
yep.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
I love that.
I think that was another ad lib as well.
Mm.
But Amanda Tapping has some really good line deliveries in this too. When they're explaining the concept of parallel or alternate realities to Mitchell, and he's saying, "Oh, there's reality where I got to second base with whatever girlfriend." Her reaction there is just yes, theoretically, just like disgusted by it, but still answering the question.
It's funny he says that because I was like, because there's a later episode, I think it's a season 10 one, where we actually meet that character.
Oh, really?
And and it's actually this they actually bring that back, which I thought was funny because
Funny.
I watched season 10 like a year or two last year or so before I was really doing this. So there is an episode though and I looked it up to make sure it was the same character, and it is. So I think it's a season 10, like toward the end of the season.
Nice.
See, and I was reliving. There's an episode, what season that is, like 2 or something, where Carter's doing that kind of thing, and Jack says, "So there's a reality where I understand what you're saying," or something like that. And then my mind immediately went to that one, and I thought, they're not going to have Kira Mitchell say that, are they?
Yeah,
He didn't, which was good.
They did one conscious repeated beat or callback to the beginning of season 2 of Atlantis, where this is the first time Mitchell has seen an Asgard. And so in Atlantis, where Shepard says, like, should he be naked? Joseph Malazzi wrote the line for Mitchell. It's like, I expected, pants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a nice scene because you forget that Cameron Mitchell's never met the Asgard.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't dawn on me that he doesn't know them.
Yeah, I would have just assumed he had, but nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we get Vasir, who is not quite as petulant and long-suffering as Hermione, but still, very put out and kind of catty towards the team there. Daniel says, "I miss Thor," which I thought was a nice
He used
line.
to voice Thor, so
Yeah.
Did they say why they've brought in a whole new Asgard? If they're doing callbacks, I mean, we've met several, and then they gave us a brand new one. Was it just to have a new personality, you think?
I think so. I think it was kind of, world building or, enlarging the universe to show that there are other Asgard. I don't know what Thor is up to. They mentioned that he was in another galaxy doing something important.
Thor is more the military commander, not really the scientist guy. So they weren't needing that. They were needing the scientists here, and it was kind of interesting with some foreshadowing for the Asgard, because I almost kind of took it as they're kind of evaluating humanity in a way, because we'll see how that comes to play in the finale of the show. But I almost kind of wondered if this was maybe a little bit of foreshadowing to that. They're like, let's see how they handle the things that are technology and stuff. Let's see if they'll misuse it. And that the one SG team was trying to, but they, of course they gave it back. So I don't know. I don't know if that was in any of their thought process, but that kind of just thought of that.
I like that they did that, because I feel like it's a common trope in science fiction where there'll be an episode where they discover some amazing technology for traveling back in time or traveling to alternate universes or whatever, and then it's never ever brought up again or used again. Like that's always bugged me about Star Trek. I feel like there's like at least 4 or 5 different examples where they have time travel, and it's like they don't ever use it again. It's like, if you can just fly around the sun really fast and go back in time, why aren't you doing that more often?
Because then the time cops will show up and you have to fill out a report and be interviewed by them, as we saw with Trials and Tribulations in Deep Space Nine.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The Time War and the Enterprise.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good that they didn't just say, oh, now we can do this all the time, but we're not going to. Like, they technically can't yet.
Yeah. And I mean, there's limited usage of, blasting a black hole and being sent to a different reality that you can't really control. I thought, Evil or Black BDU's plan was a little weak. Like, they've targeted the one thing that they want as a ZPM, not, anything else that they don't have. Because in their reality, the Ori established a second beachhead, and they have their sights set. They've destroyed Dakara and all the other planets, and they're heading towards Earth. And their plan is that if we get and I don't know if they knew about Atlantis when they gated over, if they just thought it might still be in Antarctica or something, or wherever it was. They want to steal Earth's ZPM, and then at some point they find out it's on Atlantis. So their plan is to take 3 weeks during who knows what's happening in their reality to fly to Atlantis and I guess fly back. I don't know exactly, to the black hole or something. So I think they could have come up with,
and leave Prime SG-1 just sitting in a room
planet somewhere
on the ship.
Yeah.
Because they were going to take them with them to Atlantis. I'm like,
well, they still like them. I mean, they're still themselves. Mitchell has that scene with himself in the mess hall where they're talking about his dad drinking the spoiled orange juice, which was autobiographical to Joseph Malazzi's father, who, in the days of concentrated orange juice, you would have to, take the frozen, cylinder of orange juice and mix it up. And nobody wanted to have to do that. So they would just leave the last little bit in the pitcher. And then one day his dad came in from mowing the lawn. It was really hot and drank it and inhaled the, fermented, orange juice fumes and just like spit it out all over the place. And so he wrote that into the episode there.
Nice. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Can you even still buy concentrated juice anymore?
Absolutely.
Yeah. My parents, that's what they use because that's what we always had growing up.
Yeah. And apparently that scene where Ben Browder's talking to himself, that's like Ben Browder when he's not in character, that's how he acts. When he comes into the writing room to pitch an idea, that's how he does it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so then they're locked up in the brig, and Sam even says, Black BDU Sam even says to Mitchell, you're just going to ignore him and not talk to him for the next 3 weeks. And that's where they go down, and Evil SG-1 has this plan. Well, we're going to switch out the Mitchell to figure out how they're going to escape. But, SG-1 Prime realizes that that's what they would have done in that situation. So they turn the tables and capture the rogue SG team. And that's when they figure out that, if this was your plan all along, you must have a way to get back. The plan to get back basically is, shoot the space laser through the Stargate, through the black hole, and then everybody will go back to their own realities somehow.
Yeah, you just gotta kind of just hand wave all that away. 'Cause it's like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How are you steering this traffic to the correct Stargate or whatever? It's just it's Asgard technology. It's basically magic. It'll work.
One way they could do is see it like what the delay is in establishing the wormhole to the other planet and match that up with if there were delays, because the original one had a 3.4 second. Yeah, the Stargate was open for too long. Instead of 0.3 seconds, it was 3.4 seconds. And so maybe they had a way of measuring, the time the wormhole is open, and they could figure it out that way. It's like, now it's your turn. And of course they send Fraser's team back last, even though she's probably the one who needs to go back first because her planet's being ravaged by the plague. And every second she spends in our reality or in SG-1's reality, potentially millions are dying of the plague, but
only 3,000.
Yeah, only 3,000. Yeah.
It's also funny that she's the doctor and I'm assuming she's on the SG-1 team, but she's like, you wouldn't send a medical doctor to be on a military, like you'd send, maybe they go into support after the fact or something, or if it's like a medical mission, but you don't send them on your preeminent team. But maybe their SG-1's not as military because it's Martooth
or everyone else was sick. Yeah.
Well, and Carter's on maternity, so
gotta
have another female. Yeah.
I kind of took it as because they're dealing with the plague, she's been bumped up to the front lines. They can try to find some cure, and she's the best one equipped to go out on those missions.
Yeah, but I feel like you still wouldn't send her first. Like you would send the military in first to confirm like it's safe. Because if she, if she gets killed and she's your foremost expert, then you're really, out of luck. So
they send McKay and Carter, and I send them all the time.
Yeah.
They're the foremost experts on everything. So
Right.
Yeah.
it's
So
true.
I want to jump back to Black BDU SG1 when they were saying on the Prometheus, when they were saying, that they wanted to go get the ZPM, and they're like, well, all it's being used for is to make it faster for Atlantis to talk to Earth, right? And then Mitchell says, "Oh, and to cloak the city." But I thought, man, they had a really good point. The Black BDU ones do, right? So what happens if there's a beachhead in our reality, and they need a ZPM to protect themselves, and you've got Atlantis sitting over there with how many people on the base? Not a ton. Or you could take that ZPM and save Earth. It's a very good argument.
Yeah. How many drones are left at the Atlantis or the Antarctic output, and how many super ships? Because we do see the Ori super ships coming up pretty soon. And you could maybe take out one of those, but I don't know if they sent a whole armada of them. If you could take them out with the chair. Yeah.
You could bring some of those drones back with you. I'm sure they can
that's true.
restock it, order it on Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think the idea is that Atlantis, because they talked about this in Atlantis, that even if they destroyed it, there could be enough wreckage that they could reconstitute the database and find how to get to Earth.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Or there's,
Yeah.
they, like we just saw the Atlantis episode where they were the Wraith was trying to get ancient hyperdrive secrets. So I think the idea is like Atlantis, they need to protect it because they can't destroy it enough that would make it impossible for the Wraith to use the information to get back to Earth. Because if the Wraith can conquer intergalactic travel, or even use the ZPM, like if they can gate to Earth, then there's no stopping them from they'll just keep coming and coming, and then you have the Ori and the Wraith. So I think that's the idea is they're keeping the Wraith from finding out about Atlantis and keeping Atlantis safe, because if they find it, then they can get to Earth.
True. But what if the Wraith come and then they refuse to worship the Ori?
Yeah, that would be
Problem
cool.
solved.
Let them fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mashup we didn't get.
Yeah. That's just nobody. That is not the reboot we're looking for.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, I understand both sides of the arguments, both the Black BDU team and the Prime team, as to why they would or would not want them to take the ZPM. But I kind of feel like they could have, after they figured out this is what was going on, they could have said, okay, we can't do that, but what other solutions can we come up with? Because they've always come up with these crazy solutions for these kinds of problems before. Like, they've defeated how many different Gould system lords. So you think they would have helped them out a bit rather than just saying, you guys are kind of screwed by.
Yeah. Sent you home with your tail between your legs and good luck.
Yeah. Your reality is not our reality.
Yeah.
So a minute ago, Victor, you said the phrase switch a Mitchell, which made me think of this trend that has been going on online. It's you ask AI to define an idiom that is not a real idiom and see what it hallucinates. So I took people put like in nonsense and be like, what does this idiom mean? And it will just come up with something that's just completely ridiculous. So I just tried that with switch a Mitchell, asked it to define the idiom switch a Mitchell. And what it says is, switch a Mitchell is a slang term that originated within the Stargate SG-1 fandom, specifically referring to the events of the episode Collateral Damage. To switch a Mitchell means to falsely implant a memory of a crime in someone's mind while simultaneously erasing the real perpetrator's memory of the event.
There you go.
So, when
Yeah.
someone says to switch a Mitchell, they're usually referring to a scenario where someone is being accused or believes they committed an act that they didn't.
There you go.
I like
That's
that
actually pretty good.
it is, and I like that it just going off just that phrase, switch a Mitchell, it led back to Stargate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which means there's a whole lot of Stargate fans
Yeah.
using AI.
Or they're just
Or
they're just
apparently-
sending the AI this podcast and having it listen to
There
the
you go.
podcast on repeat.
Yeah.
So it was
Good.
just thought that was funny. I wasn't expecting it to lead back to Stargate, but there we go.
Yeah, that was really impressive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's
Maybe we should start. I'm gonna start using switch a Mitchell in conversations.
yeah.
Like when my kid claims they didn't do something that they did. Just be
Yeah.
like, are you switching a Mitchell?
Yeah, I know I sent that email last Friday. I know I did. Somebody must have switched to Mitchell.
That's funny.
Let's make this a thing. Hashtag switch a Mitchell.
Yeah.
So it is funny that we've only seen one other like alternate reality episode with the mirror, or is there more?
There were two.
Two.
There was For the Grace of God, which is
Mm-hmm.
when
Yeah.
Daniel goes to the other one.
Right.
And then point of view, which is where Carter comes
Carter
through.
comes through.
With,
Yeah.
Right.
Kowalski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was early on, yeah.
Yeah. And in that one, there may have been another one, but in that one, Sam is suffering from entropic failure
Cascade
because
failure. Mhm.
yeah, because and then they explain in this episode, well, these realities are close enough to ours that we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like,
Close enough.
Never
Yeah. 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 But I like how they knew people would remember episodes from like 7 years ago and say, wait a minute, what about the entropic cascade failure? But
yep.
I mean,
so,
That was
science
good,
fiction
'cause-
nerds we're talking about.
yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking that too, but
Yeah, and you kind of have to just ignore the fact that based on like how probabilities work in alternate universes, like the fact that these 4 people always end up on this team doing basically the same thing and it's close enough to actually get them through. Like, I feel like the probabilities of that would be rather slim. But on the other hand, if you're going with like the multiverse theory where every single possible permutation
Mhm.
Yeah.
can happen, then I guess it works out that way.
Yeah, I
mean,
think it's that these are the ones closest to the original reality, so they're closer than ones that are further. Like you get the Janet Fraser Martouf one is maybe a little bit further away than the ones with
Yeah.
all of the 4 of them, and then as you get
Mhm.
further and further, you'll get like one idea I thought was just thinking about would have been funny is like having a team with like Siler and Walter on the team and like having Walter lead
Yeah.
the team or something. Like, that would have
would've
just
been
been
good.
fun to have Walter come through the gate as a gruff military guy or something. But
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
other guys, have them be on
Yeah.
the SG1 team.
So you have Dr. Lee, Walter, Siler, and we're just missing one.
Kinsey.
And they were all in this
Yeah.
episode.
Kinsey. Yeah, they were. Yeah.
So what would your worst combo alternate SG1 be?
Yeah, it would be the extreme
Order X's.
Sam's X's, yeah. SG1 Extreme. Yeah.
That would have been fun. Like
Yeah.
awful, but fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they could have done one with all these random aliens or humans from other planets that have made their way to Earth, like they're
Oh,
kind of the castaways
Yeah.
or survivors, have a team of them, and it's just like a bunch of random
Yeah.
people that like you have a lot of Jackson type characters in that, but you don't have a lot of military guys, so that
Mhm.
could have been fun.
I guess seeing Cadet Haley. We haven't seen her in years,
Yeah.
right?
When they could have brought back Jonas in this too. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
There you go. That would have been a good one.
I wish they would have done that.
Yeah.
Or the Dr. Jackson replacement they had, who eventually got turned into a Gould on the Unas planet. Forget what his name was.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could have brought back Felger and his friend Coombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, well, you could have just had like all the kids that they've brought back from other planets who have
Yeah.
now grown up. You know, Cassie could have been on there, and the Jack O'Neill from Fragile Balance, and you know, we've had so many of them. Could have made up their whole team.
Could have had a young Catherine Langford from
Oh yeah, Origins.
the Origins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunately not.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did we have any alternate language titles for this episode?
Yes, we did. Some good ones in French. Pardon my French. It's effet domino, which is domino effect. So I guess that's the phrase there. In German, there were two, depending on if you were on the DVDs or the TV. One was Parallel Welten, which is parallel worlds, and the other one was Der Ripple Effect, which is the ripple effect. And then in Japanese, we get probably my favorite, which is called SG1 ga eppai, which is many SG1s.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Love how literal it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight to the point. Awesome. Did y'all have any other thoughts on this episode?
I think for me, I wish the I want to say the second half. It was like the very end of the episode where you had them trapped on the Prometheus and trying to outsmart each other and think like each other. I kind of wish that had been a bigger portion of the episode. Like we could have gotten rid of a lot of the technobabble in the middle of the episode, and just because I think that was one of the most entertaining things to see. You know, Mitchell go back into the cell, and then you don't know that they know it's Mitchell, and then that was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to see them again, not being evil, but trying to think like each other and outsmart each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because Ben Browder was in his underwear, which
Yeah.
I guess was a Peter DeLuise idea that Ben Browder jumped on. Although his rule was he had to keep his combat boots on because he didn't want to be seen in underwear and black socks because that's not a good look.
Well, we've had Daniel Jackson shirtless, naked, a few times, and so I guess it's Ben Browder's turn.
Yep.
Yeah, because boots and underwear is such a good look.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that any better?
How'd he get his pants off?
Yeah.
Well, it's payback for him commenting on the Asgard.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. He loses his pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was something else. Carter being on maternity leave was reference to
Yes.
Amanda Tapping had just been on maternity leave at the beginning of the season.
Awesome. Well, before we go, we would like to take a moment to thank all our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secret to Stargate. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secret to Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and find the video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. To find previous episodes of Secret to Stargate and to send us feedback, you can visit sqpn.com/Stargate, and you can email us at stargate@sqpn.com. And follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And be sure to check out the SQPN Discord at sqpn.com/Discord and let us know what your ideal alternate reality Stargate teams would be. I'd like to hear people's opinions on that. What's the most outlandish one you can think of? And we'll be back next time with the next episode of Atlantis, Critical Mass. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining us and sharing the secret to Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lams, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack. And the perilous nature of this mission should not be taken lightly. There's a chance that the Prometheus may not survive this voyage, but courage and a steadfast resolve will prove the most valuable assets in this undertaking. Well, good luck to you all.
That's what I say to myself in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to The Secret to Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?